Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sarah's podcast. In today's episode, Mark is joined by none other than Austen Dack, the editor of ChippyChat magazine. Austen is a real powerhouse in the industry, tirelessly working not just for his role, but well beyond it. He's deeply rooted in both the fish and chip industry and the farming industry, and his passion for pushing these sectors forward is truly inspiring. I have a feeling that this won't be the last time we have Austen on the show. Maybe we'll bring him in for a Pod Squad episode as a guest, or even a news review guest too. There's just so much to cover with him. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Sarah's Curry Sauce, made with real herbs and spices from around the globe. There are no artificial flavours, essences, just pure, authentic taste designed for today's customers, perfectly balancing sweetness and spice. Our curry sauce is naturally gluten-free and free from artificial colours, preservatives and all those unnecessary additives. It's a really concentrated mix too. Just 5 kilos, that's one box, makes 41 kilos of sauce, giving you 410 delicious 100-gram servings. Order your curry sauce today at www.sarahs.shop for next day free delivery across mainland UK, or you can grab it from your local wholesaler. If you don't know who we supply, go on our website and you'll see there's a tab on the top that says wholesalers. They've all pretty much got it. If they don't, get in touch with us and we'll get that sorted straight away. But don't miss out. Go try it now and keep your customers coming back for more. Before we dive into Austen's conversation, a quick reminder. All our special offers, competitions and giveaways happen in one place, and that's on our mailing list. Just last month, our good friend Martin Robinson won a pallet of Sarah's Natural Batter Mix worth over £1,300. If that sounds good to you and you want to be next, or at least one of the people that are next, sign up now. We keep our competitions completely off social media to avoid those pesky, annoying scammers. So joining our mailing list is the only way to get in on the action. And as they say, you've got to be in it to win it and all that. You'll find the link in the show notes, so head over, or even head over to sarahs.shop and you can sign up to our mailing list at the bottom there too. We've also got loads of fresh content on our blog, from market reports on wheat, reviews on books, insights of the upcoming budget and employment reforms. Check them out. You'd be crazy not to go learn more, because in this industry there's a lot of fast moving legislation at the moment, and you know what, it's good just to go read some of those things. And we have some awesome case studies on there as well. So yeah, lots of content, lots of original content you won't want to miss. A little note to everyone messaging me asking when the next Pod Squad is going to be recorded. Everyone's just been really busy. Mark Petrou had a little operation. David Nicolaus had staff problems. Kelly's been in a similar position with staff, and they had a silly season for the summer. And David Miller rudely has now left us to go to Japan for a few weeks. So, you know, there's a lot been going on, and we've had a lot of work going on at our, new build and so on. So, yeah, we hopefully will have a couple more done, this side of Christmas. We enjoy them too, actually, because it's a good time for us all to get together and have a laugh and joke. So, if you enjoy this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues in the industry. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that really helps us get seen. So if you like it as well, let Austen know, let Mark know. They've put in their effort to do this, so yeah, give them a shout. Now let's dive into today's episode with Mark Petrou and Austen Dack.
I'm here today with Austen Dack, publishing editor of ChippyChat. I've known Austen for a decade or so. He had the really difficult job of filling my shoes when I sold ChippyChat, and I think it's a job he's done fantastically well. we're almost neighbours. We live in the second smallest city in the UK, Ely, population 20,000. And I've enjoyed getting to know Austin and seeing how he's been the mouthpiece and front facing person of ChippyChat and how he's evolved it with the industry. And I'm really glad to have you on today because there's so much more to Austen Dack than just these flamboyant shirts, which we'll talk about in a little while. Welcome. I'd really like to start by you telling us a little bit about you, where you were born, how you got all the way up to where you came into working at ChippyChat. And welcome.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you first for having me. We've been talking about doing this for a long time, so it's great to come half a mile down the road and join you to do this. So my journey, I suppose it started very locally. I was born in Down Market, which is just 20 miles away from Ely. Even half the size of Ely at the time, very small town. We had, in my sort of mid-teens, we had 2 takeaways, I suppose, in the town, which was very common back in the sort of early 80s. You might just have had an Indian restaurant if you were very posh. But I think we had a Chinese and 2 chip shops. And actually, in 1983, I started to actually have my first sniff of dry white in a chip shop called the Down Fryer.
It would have been liquid back then as well, which has got quite a lift to it.
It was a very, very small outbuilding, as these chip areas usually are. And I think I should start a campaign actually for more importance for the chipper, because thinking back to those days, it did actually burn my nostrils. But it worked. It did the trick. And I was chipping on a Friday evening. I was chipping 20 barrels. Potatoes.
Wow.
That's 60 bags, and
that's a busy
shop. And I'd go back Saturday morning thinking, oh, this should have a quiet day. Hopefully they didn't get through half of them, but they had, so I had to do more for Saturday. So it was a busy shop, but it was fantastic. The buzz of the shop, the owner, a chap called Ron Holder, was just like a father figure. He was fantastic. His wife Pat was absolutely wonderful. Still friends with his daughter today. Who his wife. Unfortunately, Ron passed away, but they find it very amusing. How I did that, and then all those years later, suddenly got back into the world of fish and chips via ChippyChat. But it was I look back on that, and it was hard work, but part of the DNA of where I am, I suppose, today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose I went through life in a small town for a few years. I actually was assistant manager of Fine Fair before they got taken over by Key Market. I went to a place called Martin's, the newsagent, so I was manager there for a while. And then I got a job with the Hallmark company. They gave me a company car, which was fantastic, and I would travel around. They called it the East, but all the way up to Burton-on-Trent and Leicester, and just visiting sort of Boots and John Menzies and places like that. Basically, flogging more greetings cards. But okay. Nowadays it's all EPOS and everything's done centrally, and that job probably doesn't exist anymore. But that was all about how I treated the primarily women in the jobs in store, to see what positions we'd get and how many more cards we'd sell. It was as much about the product as it was me. And that, again, a massive grounding into what I do now. I think at least 50% of what you do has got at least to be about you, and probably more. And I think what you give to them has to be at least worth 60% to them and 40% to you to keep the relationship going. So,
of course, yeah.
I actually got into publishing through an answer machine. So in those days, I don't know whether you remember, but you would have to record your message. So I'd have all these funky bands. Still, massively into music, but I'd have all these funky bands, and I would record my message to whatever I liked at the time, and I would be the kind of DJ behind the message. So the guy that actually interviewed me at the newspaper in Norwich, the Eastern Daily Press, was just laughing. I went through three interviews, and each time the message had changed. So I actually got through not because I was qualified for the job, but because he wanted to see what the next answer phone message gave him, which was fantastic. But then I got in front of him and other people and got the job at the newspaper.
On your personality.
Yeah, again, if you look at my educational CV, it's not massively brilliant. Okay, I did I think O levels they called them at the time, and did okay, but didn't do much more. But yeah, so got into sort of newspapers from that way, and then a marketing job came up because that was actually newspaper sales, that job. In the days when they had teams of people, now there's probably one person left at that newspaper. You have 30 people in a department. So the marketing job came up. Again, no real qualifications, but got that through idea generation and what I thought I could bring to their party kind of thing. So I started working at Norwich and doing a lot with the football team at Norwich, even though I support Ipswich Town Football Club and have done since 1981. It was it was a good platform for me to learn, listen, and promote the area, sell lots more newspapers, and then I got a free transfer to Ipswich for the Evening Star and the East Anglian Daily Times in 1997, I think it was. And started work with Evening Star, which then I started the whole Tractor Boy platform. It's now called the Tractor Boys, or have been since 2000. But it was me that co-invented that whole name and took it on.
So what was the Tractor Boys all about? Just creating like a community or a platform for...
Basically, the fans started to sing it one game, and we took it on after the game. They started to sing it because we were mocked for being farmers as an area. That was the Ipswich Norwich is called the Old Farm Derby.
Oh, okay.
So we took that on and we did a McDonald's meal with the posters. We did Tractor Boy Ale in 20 pubs, but all with the newspaper. So if you bought a pint of Tractor Boy beer, you got an Evening Star with it. So it was all based around selling extra newspapers, but in a fun way.
So you sort of started off in the print media business, canvassing and generating sales, but then moved into a more creative side in the marketing side. So you got to experience both.
Exactly.
Of those, which is, I had no idea that's how you sort of got into publishing. That's super cool.
I think that's why I've still got that passion. Obviously, we'll talk about that later, but the passion I've got for print. Yes, everybody loves the electronic world, but the passion for print, actually having something to read, whether it's in bed or wherever, I think that will never go away. That'll certainly never leave me. And even to this day, 140 issues in, when it arrives on the map, I'm still uber excited to see it come through the door.
Yeah, brilliant. So there were some events while you were in Ipswich and Norwich that probably stand out for you in your time there. Diana dying and also when Delia Smith did her thing on the pitch. I know about those because we've chatted about them briefly, but share them for the listener because you were involved in those.
So Diana dying. Okay, now obviously extremely sad news, and the nation went into mourning. I was actually on my honeymoon when I got the call, and it was a Saturday night, Sunday morning, and we were the company I worked for had been in print for over 150 years, but had never published a Sunday publication. So we got the call at 2-3 in the morning to say Diana had died, and immediately we got a team together and we put out a publication on that Sunday to not only reflect the story but to commemorate her life. which was quite a difficult thing to do because obviously you've got to bring the whole team in, but also the
Yeah.
Queen Mum and everybody else, we'd already got stuff ready for. Nobody was ready for that whole thing. And so for me, it was just a massive celebration. You know, what a thing to do in my career to put that out as a first. You know, lots of other people were saying, well, you know, it's not a nice thing that Diana's died, which obviously it wasn't, but it was for me, it was one of my highlights to see that newspaper come off the press and then go into the world. I guess the other thing was 9/11. We were in the newsroom watching the TV screens when it happened. And there's big lessons that we've taken through. I think lots of people, if you do a promotion, and again in the shops or wherever it may be, sometimes it's right to be first. You know, because if you're first, you're fresh, you probably get more from it. But other times, since 9/11, the rival paper out of Colchester actually put out New York plane terror. They like to, you know, dramatise the headlines. Eight dead, and that went out as
Wow.
Yeah, that was before the second tower.
Bit premature.
Just before the second tower went. Okay, and this is a time, I suppose it was 2001, when people were just about getting on internets, so they were catching up with the news quicker. Phones weren't, you know, anywhere near reflecting the news, but so we were actually waited a little bit. We haven't got massive flexibility. It's expensive to stop the press. I've shouted stop the press a few times, and it is a great thing to do, but it's a very expensive thing to do. You have to change all the plates, you have to update the news, and you're delaying the vans going out. The newsagents only open a certain time,
somebody wants answers when you shout.
They do want answers, because at that time it was probably putting £2,000 or £3,000 onto the price of, you know, just getting the paper out, and that was a few ads, and the ads were dwindling already by that time. But that was a big lesson for me, and also I think the great thing about the publishing world is we had mainly I probably had between Norwich and Ipswich 400 independent newsagents. So that kind of rings a bell into our world, you know what I mean? How do you deal with 400 different newsagents? You couldn't do the same thing for all. Some were large, some were big, some had multiple outlets, some had a kiosk. So that kind of bode me quite well for, you know, what to expect in the world I found myself in now. So I suppose the final thing was Delia.
Yeah.
And Delia, I think most people saw it. She was on Sky TV at half time. She'd had a couple of sherries, shouted, "Let's be Havania," or Avania, I think it was. I'm not about to do an impersonation. Again, we jumped on it. We reduced 6,000 posters the next day to sell alongside a newspaper. And the football club at that time wanted to vet everything because they were in the Premier League. And the football club wanted to add a G to Avania on my poster. And I wasn't going to have that because there was no G, and most people saw there was no G.
No. I mean, she couldn't even lock her legs, lock her knees, let alone pronounce having.
But I think there's big lessons, I think, and I've tried to relay them over the years, that promotional PR world or even the world of publications, lots of things come to you. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money to do something on the back of it. You can either react quickly, you can wait and do something a bit different, but there's so many things that you can do, and I think, you know, a lot of shops could do a little bit more in that effect to get themselves out there or join in on days of the year or etc. etc.
Yeah. So from that introduction into publishing, you've actually broadened your horizons, and you actually do a lot of PR and sponsorship and other activities as well. Everybody in or our listeners will mainly know you from ChippyChat, but you do not just work exclusively for them. You've got your own company as well, which is called AdProm, and you do other activities as well, which I want to come to in a little while. But you while you were at the newspaper, you also worked for Speedway team, is it in Ipswich as well, doing their sponsorship and promotion?
Sure, I think it was about the time when Sky got involved with Speedway for the first time. And lots of Speedway deals, whether it be King's Lynn or Peterborough or Ipswich, wherever they may be, lots of Speedway deals at the time were tyre-based or oil-based or petrol-based, and that was kind of the currency that they dealt in. They had, I think it was more rider sponsorship than team sponsorship, because the riders pretty much flit around the UK. They're in Sweden, they're in Poland. The riders don't belong to a team as much as, say, someone does who plays for Manchester United or Arsenal or Liverpool. They kind of get wherever they can get a dollar, they'll go.
They'll race for money, as a freelance,
pretty much.
Talent.
But it just so happens they're part of a team in Ipswich, kind of thing. No, of course they are contracted to race for a side for a season. So I got involved as a sponsor. They used to be called the Evening Star Ipswich Witches. So we were a sponsor for a few years. And most of that would be media-based rather than us giving them lots of cash. But we would do lots of stuff with them to try and get people through the door, because Speedway's a harder sell than football. You've got avid people who stand there with their clipboard, and that generations of people, families go to Speedway and always will do. But
it's got massive following in Europe as well.
Yeah, especially like the Poles and people like that. It really has. So, but it was a harder sell to get people to go in this country. But when Sky TV came on, I said, okay, well, give me 20% and I'll go out and knock on a few doors, kind of thing. Not in I think go back to, come forward to ChippyChat. I always say this, I don't think I've ever sold an advert in ChippyChat in my life in 10 years, apart from to an agency who, that they don't know what Chip is.
They're going to get for them.
Therefore, I do.
Yeah.
So back then, if I was going to see a company, and again, the 60-40, I think if it meant more to them than it did to me, I would get the buy-in, and I would know whether to get the buy-in, and I always would go and see someone that needed something out of it, kind of thing. Like AXA, a massive company in Ipswich, were recruiting thousands of people at the time. They built a base in Ipswich. Suddenly got the chance to go on TV, reasonably cheaply. It was still a multi-thousand-pound deal, which was big for the club at the time. And we did, like darts and cricket always had scorecards where you held up 6 or 180. So I did a maximum scorecard for Speedway for AXA with AXA in Maxa, which is again probably where the start of my cheesy headlines for ChippyChat came from. But that got them on TV. It got them a good brand rating locally for staff retention and staff recruitment, and it did the job for them. And I did 4 or 5 good years with the Speedway Club before it naturally came to. I'd got all the sponsorship I could, and I think they thought they could manage it themselves in the end, which is always the start of the downfall of sponsorship when you try and do it yourself, because there is a craft.
There is, and when you make it look easy, then people think they can do it.
Well, exactly. So that's fine. I think that, lots of things come to a natural. There's a progression to everything, and I moved on to other things, and moved to Ely and met Oliver.
Yeah. So that's really good timing that you bring that up, because again, I'm lucky enough to know the story of how that came about, and I think it will be quite interesting to share that as well. How you got to meet Oliver, and how you got to be involved in ChippyChat, because people who don't know you, they see the shirt first, don't
Probably,
they? And I do want to talk. I want to talk about the shirt. Was it a marketing decision, or is that a bit of you? Is that a little bit of Austen that likes to be memorable, likes to be individual, likes to just be a little bit different? Or are you influenced by a musical icon? Is there somebody in particular that you take that from, or was it a cold, calculated marketing decision? Wherever I go, people will remember that man with the shirt from ChippyChat.
Yeah, I don't know. That is an interesting comment, I suppose. But I was doing things differently before. Well, probably not just the shirt thing. Things go from one thing to another. Jackets, boots, shoes.
You're very dapper. Let's just put it out there. You're a very dapper dresser.
And I collect things. I collect so many things. Bottle tops. I have wherever I go in Europe. I bring back a beer glass. I've got 158 of those. I've got about 200 band T-shirts, and they're in alphabetical order in my one of 4 double wardrobes. So I think if you do something for effect, you're found out.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's probably the answer. Is it? Me and Barden have a shirt off at the awards every year now, and Barden, to his credit, I would say if he doesn't win, it's 50-50 at best. Yes. Barden's Barden. Does he do that for that? I don't think he does. He does it because he's Barden. So I do it because probably because I'm me, and
that's just a bit of you, which is the I suppose that's the right answer, really. But you are a brand in your own right, but you're also the like I said before, the mouthpiece and the front face of ChippyChat, and you work in the business like you own it, but you're not actually the owner. The owner's actually John and his son Ollie, and you came into the business and you've run it like it's yours. The effort, the energy, and the time that you put into it. I know hemorrhages way beyond the hours you're supposed to put into it. How did you meet, and how did you come to be where you are now?
The honest answer, after 18 years of not playing, I got a call to play Subbuteo in Ely from a good friend.
So Subbuteo is it's like table football, and so it's an adult league of table football, and you have little characters and you flip them, and there are rules.
We have individually hand-painted teams. There's a guy that makes them, so we don't use the originals because the bases aren't good enough. So we have different bases on these things. So and you can tell who's got the best bases because they are very good, and they've spent more money than I ever spent on it. The kids were young. It was a night out in the week. I had a couple of beers. That's where I was. I was quite good, but then people came into it that were so good and took it far too seriously. But we had the biggest Subbuteo league in Europe. We had European Championship where Italians came over and played here, and they went across and played there. I wasn't good enough to get into that to go to Italy, but I played when they came here. And Oliver, I thought he intrigued me because he was in the B League. He wasn't brilliant. They were all, we were all okay. But Oliver would always be late, because he was working. They built that farm up from nothing to what it is, business wise, and that was probably over 2 years that we obviously would go to the pub and chat and all this sort of thing. And I would say to Oliver, I said, look, what's your marketing plan? What are you going to do in the next 5 years for? And I guess that when we first started to talk about it, it was always like, well, farmers don't really like to market themselves, which is still a little true today. But there was a message, and this was a lot about John as well. John's relationship with people like Breyer in the industry. We would be attending the NFFF associate meeting. We went to quite a few of those under the radar kind of thing as Isle of Ely. That's when we first started to go. And when we first started to go to the awards, we would be, back of the room, 700 people. No one really knew who we were. So that was, from that point of view, I said, well, really, people should know who, why, and what you do. And also, as it was a Seafish Awards, we really do need to have a potato representative in the awards, and that's kind of through obviously Tributio. That's where it started with the whole kind of field to fryer concept, and telling people a little bit, not still not 100%, but a little bit more about what we do here, how much it costs, etc., etc. Because it still is a good, the Open Day a couple of weeks ago. It's still a story that needs to be told.
Absolutely. So in effect, the fact that all that had gone before had taught you the importance of making people realise
Completely.
the benefits. Yeah, the benefits of marketing, the importance of actually building in value and educating everybody to what you're doing. You kind of put that on John and Ollie's radar, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think they did want to do it, but at the time, it was it's still growing now, but it was certainly a massively growing company, and I think I've been involved with all sorts of different things, whether it be Speedway or aeroplanes or whatever it may be. I think the concept's the same. News agents. There's the concept's the same. I think, and I'll say it later on. I'm not going to tell anybody how to fry fish and chips. I've tried it once or twice, and I am terrible. But if you can bring some of this other stuff into it.
I know you're not terrible, because I know that you've actually taken yourself on an educational journey into fish and chips since you started ChippyChat. So I know you've been on the courses. You've seen how people do it, and you have a good understanding of it now. Oh, that's very humble. I guess at the time, while you were doing this with John and Ollie, I was in a different place with ChippyChat, because some listeners may not know that I started ChippyChat actually in 2006 in my bedroom. While you were playing Subbuteo, I was reaching out trying to find a fish frying community to talk to, and for me, I had ChippyChat for 7 years. But mine was based around not just the publishing of the magazine, but trying to build an online community where we could raise standards and share problems and promote comradeship. And I did sell space on the website, and I did sell adverts in the magazine, but I pumped it all back in. It wasn't to swell my pension. It was actually to try and build, events and stuff. But the problem with one person owning something like that is when other people speak out of turn, they all come and knock on your door, and so my idea was fatally flawed. I found running the forum, and this is up to 2006. There was no social media, no Facebook, none of that. If somebody said something improper or unprofessional, or basically was indefensible, that shouldn't have been said in public forum about their experience with a supplier, that supplier would get quite cross with me for allowing it, and quite rightly so. Looking back, I can see and I understand why that would happen. But at the time, I was raising a young family as well, and I would find myself and the moderators that were on my site, who were not paid professionals, trying to help me police literally hundreds of thousands of posts. I found it incredibly difficult, and I became overwhelmed by it. So while my children were young, I decided the best thing that I could do was probably look for somebody corporate to take over ChippyChat and to build on the good work that I've done and take it forward. So as much as I'm proud of what I did with ChippyChat, I knew that being an untrained person owning something that had taken off so much in the industry was actually harming it. And I'm not sure if it was you or if it was Ollie or if it was John or if it was the three of you. I floated the idea that I might be interested in selling it, and it came to pass. You guys obviously saw something about it that you thought this could be the vehicle that we need to really educate people what goes into growing potatoes. What a challenging job it is for farmers, to actually make a connection between grower and fryer. But you also recognised that the forum side of things was a bit flawed, and that potentially, as the years went on, that would be superseded by social media in any case. So you took it on. Can you remember back then as to what you thought you would do with ChippyChat, how the conversation, because obviously I didn't have the benefit of knowing that. I just knew that you were interested in buying it.
Well, it was I think it was October, November 2013. You came into the office with me, John and Oliver to see if we were interested, which we had done for the 2-3 years before, in putting a bit of sponsorship behind the ball, which we were.
Yes.
And then I don't think we knew masses about ChippyChat at the time. I'd met you before in the shop in Ely. And you kind of just, as only you can, said, "Oh, I think I'm thinking about selling it," kind of thing. And you'd muted with a few other people, and made it evident that if you did sell it, you wanted someone to take it over that you thought was going to, do right with it. I remember that.
Yes.
And pretty much straight away in that meeting to sell, I think it was an ad at the ball. Pretty much straight away, Oliver said, "Yeah, I think we're interested in that. I think we'll buy that." John was fine. Another one of Oliver's ideas. They just work so well together, them two. And he just turned to me and said, "Well, you're a publisher. You can do it. You can publish it." And I'm thinking, right, okay. I suppose the good thing was, yes, I was thinking, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I can do it. I've now got to do 52 pages a month on fish and chips in a magazine every month without fail. But then, we've now done half an hour on what I've previously done. I've done it with Speedway. I've done it with aeroplanes. I've done it with, you know what I mean?
It's all there anyway.
It's not really, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's all the other things we've just talked about. As long as you get that right and you give people back a certain amount, then it's gonna roll and it's gonna work. And but we attended Friar in 2014, in February 2014, with a new logo, a girl with a T-shirt, which was John and Ollie's idea, and no magazine. And I was just wandering around, people saying, "Well, we're now got ChippyChat." Kind of thing, and that's where it started. It was a great issue to start with. It was, I think, Fusco's had won the award, and my whole ethos with the awards is every winner, every runner-up, every sponsor, they're the most important thing about the whole thing. You get one of those wrong in 20, and I do 26 pages on the awards every year. 26 pages, and it takes a lot of time and effort to do those 26 pages. But get one name wrong or get one thing wrong, and the whole thing's, it falls down. It falls down. So that was our first issue. So it was difficult, but it was a great first thing to set us off and running. And I remember you did a couple of pages as a handover kind of thing. It was daunting because you're very well known and you have set this platform up. So it was daunting from that point of view to go alone. But I think we've now done 140 concurrently as well. And as I said before, each one I enjoy as much as the last, really.
Well, at the time, I was really, really concerned that I was potentially letting the fox into the hen house, because I'm selling what had become an industry resource for the fish and chip community to a bunch of lads who sell potatoes. And I thought, what if I'm actually giving these guys the vehicle to just talk Spuds up every year? But now that we've had the passing of time over 10 years, I can honestly say that I think what you guys actually did was you took this tiger by the tail and you tamed it, because you've created something that is such an important industry resource still, which is what I wanted it to be. You've allowed social media to take over the forum, the if you like, the cyber pub side of things, and people can have their rant on that, and you obviously your distance from that. But what you've done is you've given the fish and chip industry such a good understanding of what happens before the potatoes arrive at their chip shop. They have an idea of what's coming. They have an idea of what's happened. We all have a greater understanding of what farmers are facing as challenges, and that was never really on my radar to do. What I wanted to do was to create an opportunity for fish and chip shops to talk to each other, to knowledge share, and to raise standards that way. And what you've done is you've underpinned it with an understanding of what is arguably the greatest raw material that
everybody 50%.
At least 50% of the marriage of fish and chips, because people will more people will buy just chips than more people will buy just fish. So I think you certainly proved that you weren't the fox coming into the hen house. But you don't just have the ChippyChat magazine. You also have the ChippyChat Ball, and you have the Isle of Ely Open Day. And I want to give space for you to just talk about those, because they for me, I used to have the summer barbecue, which was really just a social event, so fish fryers could actually stand in front of each other instead of being online, and we'd have family games, rounders, and whatever, and I'd probably cook a pig, and Stelios would come along and cook kebabs, and it was really just a family fun day. But your Isle of Ely Open Day is an educational visit with freebies thrown in, and it is a social event. And then you do the ball, which is something I did, but I think you've evolved it. Tell us a bit about both, and then I want to go back to the publishing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously 2 weeks ago we had our, I don't know, 10th, 11th. It's very hard to remember how many we've done. Actually the Open Day was preceded. I remember being out before ChippyChat. Well, Oliver said I must go because we're in the pub quite late. I must go because we've got this. I think he might have used the word Open Day. I can't remember, but apparently the Potato Council, as I still like to call them, had organised this Open Day at John and Oliver's, and so I met Tuesday or Wednesday the next week with Sabutio. So how did the Open Day go? He said it was all right. He said we got 6 people. 6 people turned up, and the Potato Council had spent quite a bit of money on promoting this. It was one of those.
Yeah.
We all know. I think people like the Potato Council and Seafish. We've always wanted them to do a bit more for the fish and chip industry, and I think farmers had their vote 2-3 years ago, and the Potato Council is not really around anymore. They still do a bit of development work, I think, under different names. So I said, well, this Open Day thing is quite a good idea. I really do think it's great to get them over. But what I really want to do is to bring, and in the early days it was smaller, but now it's a 40 foot stage in one of your potato sheds. We're going to spend £8,000 doing it, and we're going to bring them down, and we're going to get people together and let them speak about what they've been up to over the year. But we'll have a guest farmer every year to tell people where we think potatoes are going to be, that year and the following year. And that kind of was it in a nutshell. And at night time, we'll all go to the pub and have a meal and have a few drinks. So it sounds quite a simple thing to do. It's
It's not.
not. Well, it isn't. It's you know, I am seen as an outward, always happy kind of, but it's a bloody worry. It's a worrying thing because you're relying on, we're now 130 people. They're all said they're going to come, but you come that Sunday. It's a lovely sunny day, and they've got, some of them.
Yeah.
A lot of people come from Scotland, Wales, and the easiest thing for these people to do, and I don't blame them, is not to come.
Yeah. Last year you clashed with
We
Hadnam
did.
Steam Rally. You
Yeah,
didn't this year.
yeah.
You didn't this
But
year.
yeah, so when they, the first thing is when they, you see them come through the farm door, and you think, well, that's a relief. Thankfully, the sponsors we get cover the, again, it's covering the costs. We don't get the sponsorship to make money. It's not our primary business. So a lot of the sponsorship covers the cost of the day. We had some really good speakers this year. We had some great shops turn up. We had some new people turn up. That's always makes me probably the most pleased when you get 5 or 6 new shops turn up, and you can see where they are because they're standing in the corner. And you go over and put an arm around them, and you say, "Well, thanks for coming. They've got a name badge on. Are you going to stay tonight? You can come out tonight." And it just brings a few more into, because it is a family. Fish and Chips is a family, and it's one of those businesses where you can go and visit the Premier League champion shop for nothing, learn, and come out again. And there aren't many.
Yeah, which is at the end of the day, that's what ChippyChat was
Exactly.
meant to do. It was to to make you realise that you're not alone, and the challenges you face, everybody's facing, even the top boys, and to maybe get an invite to somebody else's shop that's not on your doorstep, so you can go and knowledge share and raise standards. So you're still making that happen.
Yeah, well, there's always different things to say every year. It's probably it's probably only 2 or 3 things that are bigger as a gathering, I suppose, that happen. Okay, the great shows we go to, Q Partnership, etc. They're great, but primarily at those, you see someone come past your stand for 10 seconds, you don't grab them, they're gone. And they don't talk to everybody else. That they're just got their bag with their freebies. They'll see what's on offer and they'll go home again. So and they're great. They're massive gatherings of people, and I wouldn't miss any of them. But this is they're as you're with us all day. So and that's a difficult thing to get to the stage where we've got to. I can acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Whether people say it's good, bad, or whatever it may be, I know it's a difficult thing for as a company. Isle of Ely have got to that stage where they can court a good percentage of people in the industry and listen to what they've got to say.
Yeah, I think having a forecast of what the crop's looking like. I mean, just taking away from this year, I know the 3 biggest consumers of potatoes who grow their own potatoes won't need to dip into the supplies that have been grown for the fish and chip industry, which is certainly going to help soften the price a little bit. And you highlighted that up until this point, what was out in the fields was looking really good. But you also warned us that if the weather, and Stelios warns me about swearing, so I'll be very careful. If the weather turns to shit, we need to perhaps consider the fact that that's going to drive prices up. And that was it was encouraging to hear that prices might be a bit lower this year if the weather remains good. But then it was also rubbish to see that half the country this week is underwater. But so I think it is really useful for just to come and see what happens on a farm, how things are graded, how farmers are challenged by seed, by growing conditions, by weather, and getting an understanding of that, because our consumers, the people that buy fish and chips, are more aware. They're more understanding, and they actually are interested in the provenance of the food miles that it travels, and what they're putting into their tummies, and a knowledgeable fish fryer who's able to, able to communicate that to his customers, I think is on the front foot. Whereas a fish fryer that doesn't know where his spuds have come from, the challenges facing that end of the supply chain, is on the back foot. So, so we have ChippyChat and Isle of Ely really at our disposal. And if you don't tap into it, we'll fool you. It's there.
Yeah, I know. I agree. The ball, I think we'd been so used to. Obviously, we'd been a few years with you. It was one of those things that I'd done in a previous life. I used to organise the Suffolk Press Ball, and we had all sorts of people come to that. We even had Eddie Large turn up, and he thought he was going to do 5 minutes work, but he was the main host. I think it killed him off. I think a week later, I think he was with us no more, bless him. But we had all sorts of people come to that. Paul Daniels, we had the guy out of. Anyway, we had all sorts of celebrities to come to that. But again, it was about treat the people who come and invest in their time and money. It's about giving them value for money and also a good night.
A good night.
So this year, as soon as the Oasis thing hit, I was on the phones and I've signed up the best Oasis tribute band, whose bookings have gone up 80% in the next 2 years. But the great thing about our industry is most nights are on a Sunday, therefore they could do it. So we booked them up. So I think tickets we've already. I think it's usually about 210, 220 people come to the ball. We're over 100 already, and I haven't really started to, push it. You know what it's like. You've got to get X, Y, Z out of the way first, and then.
Well, we'll talk at the end of this because I really Oasis are a bucket list band for me. My kids were young when I wanted to see Oasis, and I didn't get, and I can't live with the ticket prices this year, so I'll make do with some ChippyChat ball tickets. I think I enjoyed Hot Chocolate were probably the highlight for me. Actually booking the Hot Chocolate to perform at the ChippyChat ball. We had Fake That twice. We had Madonna. But Hot Chocolate for me, I'll never forget the lead singer saying to me when he arrived, we need champagne. There were 13 of them, and his words will forever live with me. He said, no Moe, no Shoei, no Shandong, no Bandon.
That's fantastic.
and they were his words. So I got the band some champagne, and their opening song, they changed the words, and instead of "It started with a kiss," they opened with "It started with a fish," and that for me, I think that was, I don't put on a party as a rule, but that was my favourite ChippyChat ball that I put on at Coventry was with Hot Chocolate. I thought that was brilliant. But I've been to a few of yours, and they're always really
not
good.
The Rolling Stones were my favourite. He looked so much like Jagger. But we also, I think, claim to fame, I think, is the fact that, again, I did it with in my previous life, but and it's still on. It's still, I get people reminding me, but we were on Have I Got News for You as the guest publication.
Of course, I remember that as well. That was it was fantastic.
Elvis to play the blank, and it was Elvis to play the ChippyChat ball. Actually, it was one of those things where I decided to ask the readers, and you know how hard it is to get anybody to reply to anything in whatever you do.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I asked the readers, like I would in a daily newspaper, ChippyChat, who they would like to play the ChippyChat ball, and Elvis was one of the choices. I think it was.
Top choices.
So and that's just still shown today. Which is great.
Fantastic. Yeah. I did have a 7-foot drag queen. That was also very memorable. Having a 7-foot drag queen.
You're talking about the ball here, Mark.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Yeah, And I think, if I'm quite right, Madonna had Paul Williams on all fours. But, you know,
so the drag queen.
Yeah, so tickets are, at this moment in time, still available for the ChippyChat Ball. And I'll see you there. I'm definitely going to be coming just to rub shoulders and to see Oasis. That should be great. Going back to the magazine, you still print and publish, which I know as a publisher is that really chews into the chances of making money at ChippyChat. You guys, you don't do this to swell your pensions. You may, I'm sure you get it to wipe its feet, but making the decision to stay in print when everybody else is coming out of it is not a commercial. It's not a smart commercial decision, but it's something that I think actually will serve you in the long game. What is your? I know you said before that you like print. Is that the main driving? You just know that fish and chip shop owners like something that they can actually physically hold.
I think both suppliers and owners. Okay, we've got online. We've got thousands of people a month on social networks. We've got. I interact with them by the minute. You know what I mean? I can't stop myself. But the smell, the touch, the anticipation of
it hitting the doormat.
We've got the issue. You set it up. It's on issue. It's online. I'm just not sure who gets to page 40. If you paid for an ad on page 43 online, I'm just not sure who gets to page 43 online. Whereas a magazine's sat by it's on the table. It's on the it. And I just think, and also we do get lots of staff readers as well, which is good because they're the next. Often they're going to be the next generation.
So, absolutely, and with trade magazines, people don't just buy it for the articles; they do buy it for the ad. They do subscribe and receive it for the adverts. They do want to see what the next innovation is. They do want to see what else is available out there, because I've been I'm a fish fryer first and a publisher second, and one of the unsung heroes is actually still a good mate of mine. If you're the swan on top of the water with your very nice shirt, then Stuart Catterson must be the legs paddling.
Can I tell you a story about Stuart? Okay, I love him to bits, and you know just how good he is. Okay,
he's a very talented artist.
Me and Oliver, went to meet him, obviously, when we'd taken it over.
Yeah.
And we just... and yes, we obviously we were going to give him a chance. But this is before we went to his hut. Okay?
His hut? You've been to the hut?
Yeah. And we're thinking... And I said, I've got some ideas. I've got some good people I know that can do magazines, etc., etc. And we were leading down the path that, it was the end of an era for ChippyChat, therefore...
Yeah.
But as soon as we got there... Wow, you can see, that guy has just got such talent, and obviously way beyond doing this. But again, it's about I think Stuart would, if he didn't like doing ChippyChat, he would have given that up years ago. He's not doing it for the magic dollar, that's for sure. And listen, I get paid well to do ChippyChat. I'm not saying that I'm a pauper by doing it. I get paid well. I obviously do.
You get paid right. Not well. Let's say you get paid right.
But Stuart, wow, he is fantastic. The things that he can draw and things that he can do, and give him time. We've got Dropbox, and there's stuff goes in every day in Dropbox. It's not just get to the end of the month and think, we've got a magazine to do, because Stuart likes to have his regimen.
A flat. Do you still work off a flat plan?
I always do a flat plan. I love it. I've still got the original flat plan. And I print it off, and I've got, I mark off the pages we've done, and I've got another, colour for the people who are going to be later with the artwork. I've got an agency colour. I love a plan, and I love So it is a mixture, but no, Stuart is hyper talented.
Yeah. He's a lovely man, and he he is so creative. The things that he does out of away from publishing, just I'm in awe of him. He's so talented. He can work with any
Sure.
medium as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, but he's he's one of the unsung heroes. He brings your ideas to life in print.
Yeah. But I say to him, Stuart, can we do? I mean, there was a classic example of what he did with an artist that he knew very well, and he did a box of fat on someone's head, and that was an absolutely fantastic front page. But
yeah,
I kind of told him what I wanted, but never knew that would come to life like that. And we also did an edition, and I think that was for Pork, and that was based on the Audi advert. And again, that came out so well. I mean, I know
Pork sprung durch technique.
Yeah. So yeah, I like to think we offer a bit of value in that as well. The way that things are put across, the fjord focus. I've used it a couple of times, but when I first did fjord focus for Seafood from Norway, that was way above anything their agencies are sending.
Yeah. You're both very punny. Very punny.
Yeah. Very I know funny. Andrew Crook loves them.
And that's something else that you've strengthened is your relationship with the NFFF, because I always put a disclaimer on page 3 that the ChippyChat promotes an active and well organised federation. But when I launched ChippyChat, Andrew's dad Bill actually made me stand down as an executive councillor. Oh. He said there's a conflict of interest. You can't be both. And I've still got that letter. Andrew's seen it. It exists. I've still got it. And I was a massive Bill Crook fan. He's a dear friend. I thought he was. I think Andrew has really filled his shoes and is a great president. But ChippyChat under your stewardship seems to be working really closely with the NFFF, which is something I'd always hoped for, but I never really pulled it off. And I think that's because I might have been under pressure. I let myself down a few times, particularly with one former president, which I'll never probably get the chance to apologise. But it's water under the bridge now. I'm really pleased that ChippyChat and the NFFF are good mates, aren't they? That you get on really well with Andrew as well.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we do go to we get invited to lots of events, I suppose, together. I do attend probably 90% of what we both get invited to if I can. And yes, we do. We work together. Especially like the trips. I think I've been on 5 or 6 Norwegian trips. We're probably always the last at the bar, but we're always the first up the next day, making sure everybody's okay. Put an arm around the shops that haven't been before, making sure that the most important thing about probably the Norway trip is the vessel owners, making sure that they think they're getting great value out of what we do, how we promote fish and chips in general. And I don't really see a line between anybody really. I think if you've got the ethos that we've got, then there shouldn't be a reason why we shouldn't work together. The NFFF, most of their work they do, the committee do for nothing. You can't. I can't criticise someone. Okay, there may be certain things I think they could do X, they could do Y, but we can all do X and Y extra. And yes. As I said, they've all got shops. They've got families. And what they've done over the last 3 or 4 years, in general, has been positive, been good. It's great.
Yeah. You've got your own, your own place in the awards now. You've got your Field to Fryer, which again is another string to the ChippyChat bow, in the form of Isle of Ely, of course. So that's another great award, and for reasons that we've already talked about. But you produce a champion every year who really does understand how the potato business works, and you work hard to cultivate relationships with your champions every year. I know last year you went all the way up to Scotland to the Scottish Awards and actually visited your champion up there, didn't you?
Sorry, can you cut that out? Sorry.
Yeah. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the really important thing about the fact that someone like Real Food Cafe, for instance, who have got not just the potato side of things, but they bought a shop in the middle, a little chef that failed in the middle of nowhere, and they've got all those things going on there that they cope with wonderfully well. Staff being probably the biggest issue, but it's a 960-mile round trip. It's a few hours, which obviously on the way I went to the Scottish Fish and Chip Awards, but would I done one without the other? Probably not. And I've just recently come back from Bell's, and I know that Bell's Fish and Chip Shop is just come above the parapet of wanting to tell people about his story, and
it's amazing, man, isn't he? Incredible story.
Absolutely wonderful, absolutely wonderful winner. And we've over the years we have had some really good winners, and a lot have gone on to win what most people call the main award, obviously the takeaway. But I also think in the public's eyes, they don't really know. If someone says they've got an award in the window and it's the main one of the main awards, people don't really know the difference between all the awards. People get the uplift from any of the awards if they treat themselves properly once they've won the award. Don't take winning the award's the first step, isn't it? Or entering the awards is the first step. But when you win one, it's a bit like being a sponsor. I said at the Open Day the other week. You put down your money. It's hard-earned cash to be a sponsor. But for goodness' sake, once you're a sponsor, you need to have, like we've got Field to Fry, you should have something behind that to last the whole year and make the most of the sponsorship. Yeah. But there are quite a few that they put the logo on, they put the suit on, and they present the award, and you don't see them again until the next year.
Yeah, I mean, there are different faces from the awards. You've got the front facing general public, and the benefits of winning an award are clear to see, because you do get an uplift in trade. It does add value to your own brand, but then within the industry as well, the products that you're using, the standards that that you work to, your ethos, your working practices are there as a lesson for everybody else to benefit from as well. And so that's not customer facing, that's to your peers, and that's raises standards from within the industry. So being in the awards isn't just about what you can take from it, it's what you can bring to it and what you can benefit from it. As there are so many different facets, and putting your hand in your pocket to sponsor a category is again is a really awesome thing for you to be doing.
The last couple of years we've actually taken it one step further and gone from seed to fryer, and so the last couple of years Agrico have actually been a joint sponsor with Babylon, but to get involved, seed would normally be about the farmer, the yield, etc. Yeah. What with less, you need less fertilizer. You need, it'll give you an extra yield. It'll do X, Y, Z. But it wasn't really, the end user didn't really come into it. So now with people like Maya, I know you've had Terry on, very interesting.
Yeah.
Agrico, HZBC, to get that. Is that level of people talking actually about what fish and chip shops need is fantastic. It's in the conversation, and that wasn't happening.
Yeah, it shows what you're doing is working, doesn't it? To take somebody further down the supply chain and bring them back to your end is really powerful. It's really useful. So, looking forward. Where do you see the challenges for the industry that you're operating in, and where do you see ChippyChat fitting into that?
Challenges for ChippyChat first, then the industry. So as a publisher going into the trade, as a resource, gets harder and harder every year. There are a lot of people that do focus on the electronic media because they see figures and facts and it's an easy shot to. It's easier to do than writing copy, sending adverts, etc., etc. There are less and less companies. I think there's less and less people operating that are visible in the industry. From a shop point of view, I think we just see as the cost of living has increased, and since the pandemic. Obviously, Isle of Ely have seen less and less chipping potatoes going out to fish and chip shops. Their business has changed, has evolved. They're serving different people with potatoes. You've got obviously the chipping guys. They're doing more and more. The ready meal market is exploded. They're using more and more potatoes, and I think that. Unlike other areas, they're more prepared to pay for them as well because they have to.
And probably the margins
The
might be
margins
better
are
as well on some
probably
of these.
not dissimilar, but it's easier to send a ton of potatoes to XYZ than it is 40 bags of potatoes in a lorry on a it's harder work to serve a fish and chip shop. And I think was it the doctor? I can't remember. I call him the doctor anyway. But Mike Neveson he's fantastic at the open day, and he said the price range where he expected potatoes to be, and you re-emphasised that anything below that, it could be the end.
It could jeopardise.
It could be as bad as the end because A, they'll do something else. So they can grow something else, with less hassle, or B, they'll just grow it for someone different. So I think as long as people are prepared to accept that a bag of potatoes is going to be a cost that's, I think it should be fair for both. I think where he was going with the price. If we don't get a month's worth of rain, and then it is fair for both.
If farmers can't afford to grow them and fryers can't afford to fry them, there is no supply chain. So it needs to find that level, doesn't it? Where a farmer takes the risk with the weather, takes the risk with the yields and the crops and the pest and the packaging and the transport and the electricity, because farms actually need electricity as well.
Exactly.
They need a tremendous amount of electricity.
There's obviously more and more stores going up, and it takes a lot of money to run them and to store them. Actually, one of the stories we had when someone came to the open day was they actually thought that they were dug up weekly for them. The potatoes are there in the ground all the time and just dug up fresh for when they needed them. So, but I also see positives. I see people like that massively reinvigorated David Miller, and his brilliant son going into different marketplaces, going to different areas. So if you find yourself with no lunchtime trade, or if you find yourself a little bit down, there are other options. If you can, you might need to have some money to do it, but you might need to have more of a will to do it because of the way things have changed and the way things have adapted over the last 2 or 3 years. It's not 5, 6 years. So I'm off next week or the week after to York to see just what they're getting up to. I've had an inkling of it, and that people akin to that are always going to be doing well in the industry, and that's kind of the lesson.
They are amazing. They are. Okay, so who's the best fish and chip?
Well,
that's such a cruel. That's such a cruel question.
That is the question.
there are so many good ones, and you really do do the miles. You
I've done
do
20. I said I've done 20,000 miles in the last year for Team Fish and Chips, including Bob's Fish and Chips in Dubai. But I think they all go back to the same ones. And interestingly, listening to the podcast with Bonnie and James, I think it was, where how do you keep your A game for the awards? You said, well, I've got that A game, but I've also got the 5-star game. 5 stars should be for everybody. At least four stroke 5 stars. Everybody comes in, they have good fish and chips. They go away and they want to come back next week. That's where we want everybody to be. But you've got your Shea Freds, you've got Coleman's, and obviously your good self. You wouldn't want to say that, but you've got your good self. There are.
Well, I'm all right.
No, but there are. You've got your Weatherby Whalers. You've got your Andrews. You've got. I've been to so many Finneys. I've been to so many good shops in the last year. And I apologise if I haven't mentioned who I should mention.
There are so many tens, aren't there, out there?
That's the awards have driven up. That's what the awards do.
And ChippyChat, I think, has played a part because we are all talking more than we ever did. There were Federation branch meetings. Let's not forget that that's always been there. But I think social media is a double-edged sword, and if it's used correctly. And these open days, and that we need as an industry to be united. I think it is us against them, not us against each other. And I think ChippyChat's played its part in making that happen.
Yeah, well, I think we managed to print through the pandemic. ChippyChat could have. You said there isn't massive money in printed magazines. There isn't. I'm a cost, Stuart's a cost, the print's a cost. But I think the support the industry showed through the pandemic, plus the fact we were the only thing that could get into shops because the reps couldn't, and obviously people weren't going in. So that was actually, I think that was a good marker to say, we kind of like you.
Yeah, and you won a British Farming Marketing Award as well. Which
I love that because it kind of gave me an insight as to how people feel when they win. You know what I mean? I've organised things, I've done things, and sponsored things, but for us to win, and particularly from the farming side, and it was about the Field to Fry platform and how we've involved growers and seed people. So to get that was great, and John got an Outstanding Achievement Award a few years ago, which was fantastic. But I think it does. It to know how people feel was a good feeling. Liked it.
Brilliant. So, wearing your other hat, you're doing Panto this year.
Oh no, I'm not.
For AdProm. Oh yes, you are. My lovely daughter's at musical theatre. She's doing a musical theatre degree in Guildford. But this is Holly.
Yeah. So this
is Holly.
But this is stemmed from an organisation called KD Theatre Company Academy, which she joined when she was 8 or 9, which was costing us a few quid a month. She was doing dance and ballet and guitar lessons and you name it, she was doing it. Anyway, but this particular thing, I was thinking, well, that's a few quid a month. I'd rather save. So I actually had a word with them. I said, who's doing your sponsorship kind of thing? They said, well, we haven't really got anybody doing it. I said, well, okay, I could look at doing it. I said, first thing we need to do is have a word about these fees, and secondly, I'll take a X percentage if I get any money in, kind of thing. And I've been doing that 10 or 11 years now, and
I've been to a few of those Pantos.
They are fantastic.
Brilliant. They are brilliant.
The massive thing is the fact there's Pantos in Norwich, Cambridge, Peterborough, and we worked out the other day that we've saved the Ely economy nearly £3 million by them having that Panto in Ely. because there's 11,000 people go to see it, and they all go out for a drink or something to eat, and they're not going out to other areas. So we've actually brought in, you know, £3 million into the local Ely economy because.
Were you anything to do with the Shrek one this year?
No, no, I wasn't. I knew of it.
No, you didn't promote it.
No, I didn't. No, I have done the odd thing in between Panto, but the Pantos, because it's such a big gig, it's an easier one to sell locally for sponsorship.
Again, well, you'll be getting my support with that as well. What does James do, your son? Because I know you've got a daughter and a son.
James is wonderfully. He went to Hills Road, which is one of the best sixth forms in the country. In
Cambridge.
Best in Cambridge. Said to me he didn't want debt. Bless him. So he didn't go to university, but he got on a degree course with Tesco's head office because they kind of mop everybody else up. So he was being paid very well by Tesco's to do this course.
Is that down in Cheshire? Is that where they're?
Where is he? Hertfordshire. Welham.
Okay.
So he was lodging at someone else's house, bless him, £500 or £600 a month, whilst doing this. And then 2 or 3 years later, he gets it, all his qualifications, doing really very well for Tesco's, and has a call out of the blue from Wickes. So now he's very well paid indeed to work for Wickes. So Tesco paid for his education, but then didn't want to pay, any more. That's what they do, to keep them there. So he's now a sort of buyer for Wickes there in Watford, but he's bought himself a place in Welland. But I see him every weekend because we are home and away Ipswich Town sports.
He's an Ipswich fan as well.
He was born in Ipswich, so he had no choice, bless him.
I joked on the open day that I was going to ask you how long it was that you supported them before you realised they weren't called Ipswich Nil. But they're actually doing really well. Okay. They're back in the Premiership.
Let's see. We're 4 games unbeaten now, so yeah, we'll see. We're off to West Ham this weekend and Everton the weekend after, I think. And yeah, it's just great. It's just a great social thing, really. And I get to see some fish and chip like we went to Man City away, so I went to Chips at number 8, thinking it was close, but it was like 10 kilometres away. In Prestwich. And another great operation. A guy that's come into it, he's got a great shot, a great passion, and he's got some really interesting stuff on the menu. But people say, "Oh, it's because you went to Ipswich, you went to that." I said, "Well, no. The easiest thing for me to have done after the game was just go to a local restaurant in a bar and just sat with James and my wife Sarah." But no, we made the effort and went.
Yeah. You're making the ChippyChat pound go a little bit further as well, because you're out and about anyway, so it makes sense. Yeah. That's being frugal. Brilliant. What does Sarah do?
Works for Eon, so it's all over the country. So it depends on what's happening, whether they're opening new offices. Obviously, you had the pandemic, so she had all these offices they suddenly weren't using. She did one of the very first offshore offices, including having to buy the boats to go out to the wind turbines. So I very often don't see her in the week, but when she's there, she sits next to me, so we sit next to each other. ChippyChat one side, Eon the next. Yeah,
lovely. Well, I think we've reached a point where I think I've bullied you enough. Is it? There are just a few more questions before I let you go. Just some advice to if you could share something with the listener about. Let's say they're coming into the industry and they want some advice on coming into the industry, or maybe something that you think people would benefit from reading. I just want you to give us a little bit more of you before you go, to give you that opportunity just to say, do this. If you're gonna be in this industry, do this. For me, I'll start off. I think coming to your open day is such a worthwhile thing to do. And coming to the ball and letting your hair down is also a worthwhile thing to do. But from your time of being in this industry, you must have seen some things.
You do see it all. Even now you'll see people asking ridiculous questions about fish or potatoes or oil. I suppose number one is training, whether it be in Triple F, whether it be KFE, whoever it may be. Number two, there are what we've been talking about. There are so many people out there that are willing to as long as they're not next door to you, they're not going to do you any harm. But they're willing to open the doors up. They'll come and go and do a shift somewhere. There'll be someone somewhere that will say, "Come and do a shift with me," or come for a few days. It's such a brilliantly open business. From that point of view, that if you're coming into this trade, I think that without doing any of those, you're setting yourself up to fail. But it's them, but it's telling those to do it. They don't know that from straight away. I think as long as we do put the message out, and you certainly put the message out, Andrew certainly puts the message out. Training is probably the number one, but just absorb everything you can, because there's lots of stuff out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure by the end of this, everybody will know Austen Dack a little bit better, and that was the idea of getting you on. And I'm so grateful to you for just being open and honest and sharing a little bit about you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
I'll see you at the ball.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.